So this brings us to pop art. Pop art is ultimately a reaction to abstract expressionism. They are trying to create something concrete, something that is approachable, while frequently incorporating many of the same ideas that we will see from abstract expressionism and elsewhere. So let's get into a bit of a definition. First of all, following the popularity of abstract expressionists, pop art will try and reintroduce identifiable imagery. Imagery drawn from mass media and popular culture. And this will be a major shift for the direction of modern art or modernism. The subject matter became far from traditional high art themes of morality, mythology, and classical history. Rather, pop artists celebrated commonplace objects and the people of everyday life, in this way seeking to elevate popular culture to the level of fine art. Perhaps owing to the incorporation of commercial imagery, pop art has become one of the most recognizable art forms that we will see. In the years following World War II, the United States actually enjoys an unprecedented period of economic growth, and we see people moving to the suburbs, spurred by the availability of inexpensive, mass-produced homes. Now, this is the start of the problem for pop art. When you look at this, we are entering into a consumer-driven culture where everything is mass-produced, from the houses and lots down to the things that you buy to decorate them. And as pop art sees it, that mass production will speak to the people, and arguably they're right. And you have to understand the time period. That 10-year period from 1945 to 55, following World War II, we see household incomes triple. So suddenly everything becomes a lot cheaper, because imagine if your household income tripled over 10 years. What you used to struggle for suddenly is like paying nothing. That $200 car payment, for example, becomes like paying $20. Who cares? You don't even budget it. You just sort of sit there and go, yep, it's going to come out and I'm good, so I don't have to worry about it. So you see where pop art is kind of jumping in and saying, hey, we can speak to this group, to this new middle class, through the language that they are most familiar with, which is that of mass consumption and mass production. Now, Elvis Presley led the emergence of rock and roll. Marilyn Monroe will reign as a film star, and television, of course, replaces radio as the dominant media outlet. Yet, by the late 1950s and early 1960s, we see a cultural revolution, which is underway, led by activists, thinkers, and artists who sought to rethink and even overturn what was, in their eyes, a stifling social order, ruled by conformity. And of course, this will impact the art world as well. We see the Vietnam War inciting mass protests. We see the civil rights movement seeking equality for African Americans, and the women's liberation movement will gain momentum. But ultimately, pop art will be inspired by the everyday. And it was in this climate of turbulence, experimentation, and consumerism that a new generation of artists emerged in Britain and America in the mid to late 1950s. Pop artists began to look for inspiration in the world around them, representing and at times making art directly from everyday items, consumer goods, and mass media. They even adopt commercial methods like silk screening, or produced multiples of works, downplaying the artist and subverting the idea of originality, playing off that Dada idea that we dealt with weeks ago, where the original can be one of six. There isn't really an original. And this is in marked contrast with the highly expressive, large-scale abstract works of the abstract expressionists, whose work had dominated post-war America, but who pop art felt had alienated many of its viewers. So pop artists will favor realism, everyday and oftentimes even mundane imagery, and heavy doses of irony and wit. Yet we have pop artists like Warhol and Lichtenstein who were very aware of the past. They sought to connect fine art traditions with pop culture elements from television, advertisement, film, and cartoons. At the same time, their work will challenge traditional boundaries between media, combining painted gestures with photography and printmaking. So, let's look at pop art.